So, Shannon, how offended are you that Shaq basically dismissed LeBron as a 7 or 8?
I'm not offended by Shaq's opinion because I know Shaq very well, Skip. And Shaq played the game, played at a very high level. He's a he won the chip 4 times. He's an MVP, 3 finals MVP. So I have the utmost respect. Where I push back on Shaq is that he's saying there's no 9, that nobody is even close. So if you're saying Kareem, Magic, Bird, Kobe, LeBron, Wilt, Russell are 7 and 8s, what is he saying about himself? Because it's going to be very interesting to see where he falls in that pecking order of the top 10. Skip, it's going to be very interesting. Because if he's saying those guys are 7 and 8, there are no 9s. And by all indication from what I've heard, ever read, he's not in front of any of those guys. So if those guys are 7s and 8s, what must Shaq be? So he doesn't know. He think while he's hyping up Michael, he's really doing a disservice to himself because he's putting guys that are considered greater than he is at 7 and 8. So that must mean he's a 5 or 6 or a 3 or 4. Skip, for me, when I heard him say, it just validates. Shaq, you played against Mike. You played against Mike in the last three-peat. You needed to see the video to offer you validation of how great Mike was. Skip, I don't need to see another video of LT. If I don't ever see time again in highlights, I know what he was. I played in that era. Skip, when you cover somebody, you didn't need that video. You was around in 98. If you were around, this video should be, now, someone that wasn't around that didn't see Mike. Okay, I get that. Wow, man, I ain't know Mike did it like that. I ain't know what he did was like that. But Skip is more of behind the scenes. This video mainly, Skip, was about what drove Mike and the length that he was willing to go through to show that maniacal drive that he had. That's what this mainly, that's what I've gathered from it, Skip. What Mike was willing to do. The people that he was willing to push, drag, kick, whatever to help get him to the mountaintop. That's what I got from it. Skip, it wasn't about on the court. We know, come on, man. The man averaged 30. So obviously he could put the ball in the basket out of the clip. No, we had not seen before. Well, Will. But for the sake of this argument. So I didn't need the video. I watched Mike from 82 all the way to his final shot with the Wizards. But Skip, for Shaq to say nobody's even close, nobody's a 9, 7 and 8, I think that's more of an indication on him than it was propping Mike up. An indictment on him than propping Mike up.
Okay, before I respond to everything you just said, allow me to say, for your benefit and LeBron's, would somebody out there please say something nice about LeBron James? I mean, I've never seen anything like this, Shannon Sharpe. Another day, another shocking shot at your man, LeBron James.
Yeah.
The Last Dance has been open season on LeBron James. Again, never seen anything like it. The Last Dance and all of its fallout has been as unmerciful on your man LeBron as Michael Jordan was on Scotty Burrell, as we've been seeing in the documentary each night. In the end, it's one shot after another from Hall of Famers or highly credible sources, and this one might have topped the list because, to your point, Shannon, and I'm glad you made that point, even the great Shaquille O'Neal, and we're going to talk in our next topic about where he does rank versus LeBron, but even the dynamic, dominant Shaq Diesel is giving it up to Michael Jordan and saying, hey, we're all the rest of us, all the greats, all the pantheon, we're all 7s and 8s compared to that one guy who was a 10. And there are no 9s, says Shaquille O'Neal. What's his credibility? Well, obviously he won 4 championships. He had 3 finals MVPs. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? He actually played 1 year in Cleveland with LeBron James. Unfortunately, that was the year in 2010 that ended with LeBron ending his first go-around in Cleveland by being accused by the owner, Dan Gilbert, of quitting against the Boston Celtics. So clearly, Shaq saw up close and personal that LeBron against the Celtics just shrank, melted, disappeared in games 4, 5, and 6. What's that?
Was that the MVP season? Was that the back-to-back season at which LeBron won MVP? I think 9 and 10. He won MVP. But go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm going ahead because I asked anybody to please pull the tapes of games 4, 5, and 6 against the Celtics, which was followed the next year, his first go-round with the Heat, his first finals with the Heat against Dallas, in which it was the all-time superstar meltdown, games 4, 5, and 6, in the finals against the Mavericks. So my point is, everybody knows that, except you, that LeBron is disqualified from any conversation with Michael, Jeffrey, Jordan. So Shaq is going so far as to saying all of us are 7s and 8s, and there's 110. He's saying that your man LeBron doesn't even belong in the same conversation or basketball universe with LeBron. And again, I value this, Shannon, because Shaq has a monstrous ego to go along with his monstrous ability. And even he gets it. He saw it. He felt it up close and personal. One guy is a 7 or 8, the guy that you say is the GOAT. And the other guy who I say is the GOAT and have said this for decades is a 10. And to me, that all-time slammed the door shut on the LeBron GOAT case, as I call him, the phony GOAT, rated PG as in phony GOAT. And I want everybody today to sit back and almost feel sorry for LeBron because, Shannon, it's been this daily onslaught, this daily bombardment from highly credible sources against LeBron. So let me just quickly hit the highlights, or for you, the lowlights. We've had Dennis Rodman saying that he could shut down LeBron by guarding him because LeBron has a very simple game with no moves, says Dennis Rodman. And that Michael's commitment at any cost, his spare no expense, drive and desire, win at all costs, was something that LeBron has never even thought about having. That from Dennis Rodman. And then we had Charles Barkley ranking LeBron 7th on his all-time list, one spot up from 8th. And then we had Mike Malone, who was a 4-year assistant coach with LeBron in Cleveland, saying that LeBron just doesn't have the killer mentality that Michael had. Duh. That's what I've been trying to tell you for 4 years. And then we had David Blatt, who coached LeBron as the head coach in Cleveland for a year and a half in his second time around in Cleveland, saying that, well, LeBron had to chase championships while Michael stayed and won all 6 in Chicago, while obviously LeBron took his talents to South Beach, then back to Cleveland, then to Hollywood. And Michael said, I'll stay here. And Blatt also took the ultimate shot at LeBron, saying that Michael was more about us, while LeBron was more about I. Well, man, that's from your former head coach. Then we had Tony Kukoc out of left field saying, well, it's obvious to him that Kevin Durant is the best player in the NBA today. Wow. The Michael Jordan of Europe, as he was once called, said that. And then even Kobe, we saw in one of his last interviews, in this one in the documentary, saying, what you get from me is from him. My 5 championships are because of him. Whew. That's a coronation quote. And then Larry Bird obviously had referred after the 63-point game at the Boston Garden in the playoffs, it was God disguised as Michael Jordan. And then John Sally in the documentary said, he wasn't human. That's why we needed the Jordan rules. And finally, we had the great Magic Johnson just flat out proclaiming, well, Michael was the GOAT. Wow. That's a lot. That's an onslaught, Shannon. I don't know how you're ever going to survive this, because the Last Dance has been your last dance for your GOAT argument.
Now, Skip, I want you to keep that same energy, because you said David Blatt said Michael stayed in one city and won those championships. So I want you to keep that energy, because we know one guy that just left after 20 years to chase a championship. So I want that same energy. I want that energy that you just had when you read David Blatt's statement, when that guy that just left New England to go chase championships in Tampa. I want you to have that same energy. Now, I'm going to need that this year. I'm going to need that moving forward. Second of all,
you've got it.
Go ahead.
Because, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, finish up. I want you to hit that one. Go ahead.
Tom Brady obviously got pushed out the back door over the last 3 years by a head coach who wants to prove he can win without Tom Brady. Totally different scenario. Tom would have liked nothing more than to finish in New England. The owner wanted him to finish in New England. The head coach that you call the GOAT coach, wrong, wants to show he can do it with Jared Stidham. Okay, God bless and good luck. So Tom is going to chase championships because he was forced to chase them.
Well, LeBron James would have loved nothing more to spend his entire career in Cleveland had Dan Gilbert could have brought talent around him in order for him to succeed. Because remember, Skip, in that letter in which he typed up and emailed or however it got out, he says he will win a title before the self-proclaimed king. So he was going to show that I can win a title without GOAT James. That being past that now, Skip. Now, you said accusation. The owner accused LeBron James of quitting. How many times have people accused Shaq of being lazy, of Shaq of not playing hard? And again, I say an accusation is not fact. An accusation is not truth. That is not an admission of that is being the case or not, Skip Bayless. So we need to stop with these accusations. I hate that. Now, with that being said, if a guy that has 16 All-NBA, 13 of them being first, 16-time All-Star, a 4-time league MVP, a 3-time finals MVP, a 6-time defensive first team. Skip, if that's a 7 or 8 player, everybody else can be no higher than a 6. So Kareem with 6 MVPs, 6 championships, all-time leading scorer. What is he? What's Wilt? What's Russell? What's Bird, Magic? I just want to know what are they? What are they?
They're
I mean,
eights.
really?
They're all 8s.
Man, you out your mind, Skip. Like I said, I got no problem. If Shaq want to say Jordan is the best, I got no problem with Shaq saying he believes that Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time and saying that he's a 10. But to say that there's no one close, that's like saying there's no one even close in intelligence as Albert Einstein. Well, we might not develop the theory E equals M square or develop the H-bomb, but that's entirely different. That doesn't mean that someone doesn't have the wherewithal, the mental intellect. That just means they didn't come up with the formula to develop a bomb. Okay, fine, that's cool. Skip, there are musicians that's talented, but to say, oh, there'll never be a Bach, there'll never be a Strauss or a Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, come on, Skip. Really? To say there's no one close?
Shannon, in a few minutes, we're also going to get into another topic in which Doc Rivers, now the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, one of the greatest coaches ever, a championship NBA coach, says that Michael Jordan was the greatest superstar defensive player in the history of basketball. So Doc is saying everybody's missing the point that Michael was at least as dominant on defense as he was on offense. He won 10 scoring titles, but he also was 9 times first team All-NBA defensive. And in 1988, Michael Jordan won the scoring title and Defensive Player of the Year. That's how dominant he was on both ends of the floor. LeBron has had stretches where he was a very good defender, but trust me on this, not even in the same universe with Michael Jordan as a defender, a shutdown defender who could change the game on that end of the floor with his length and his strength and his killer will. He took games over because, as Doc said, there were nights I couldn't get the ball up past half court against him. He was as dominant on defense as offense. So, Shannon, it's closing the case where I'm so happy that a younger generation is getting to see Michael, Jeffrey Jordan in all of his glory, behind the scenes, the psycho drive that he had. You call it bullying. I call it the greatest motivational leadership ever. He pushed his teammates like a madman. He, as he said, I pulled along players who did not want to be pulled. He shamed them. He ridiculed them into greatness. They all contributed to his 6 championships in 6 tries with 6 finals MVPs. The totality of everything that we're getting during the documentary and then the fallout from the documentary is overwhelmingly making my case that I've said since Michael retired. There's never been anything like this force of nature that was Jordan. And it's not just about the shoes. He's obviously the shoe goat. He's the goat. He's the goat of all goats. And I'm loving it that the kids, the blind witnesses who don't know any better but to follow LeBron and accept that he calls himself king, so he must be the king. No, he's not the king. There's a one and only mighty king, and it's the guy Shaq said is a 10 to all these other 8s and 7s. And I love that, Shannon. And in the end, it just makes me feel sorrier and sorrier for you because I do love you.
No, don't feel sorry for me. Skip, I'm glad this documentary is out because what this documentary has done, it has forced you to do something like when President Trump was elected. It was forced you to choose a side. All this bull jive, Skip, I don't get into politics. I don't really care. You know, Michael Jordan and LeBron, well, they're both good. Can we just admire both of them? They played, no. Pick a side. Michael or LeBron. It's as simple as that. There's you win or you against. That's as simple as that. Skip, it doesn't even get any simpler than that. And so for me, Skip, I'm not gonna to criticize anybody for their opinion because you and I, we make a living giving our opinions. Got no problem with that. I think sometimes where the problem that I have is where I want to push back, and I do push back, is that when they say, well, this guy's way up here, and then you got little guy down there. I'm like, with those, they make it, Skip, you would have, this would be a much more compelling argument. If LeBron had 1 MVP, if LeBron had 1 title, but with the accomplishments, with the totality of his body of work, it is just hard for me to see. And some of these other guys with their totality of work, for Shaq to be as dismissive and say 7 and 8, that's where I push back. Not in his opinion, because his opinion that Michael's the great, so be it. Okay, that's what Shaq says. I'm not debating that. I'm not arguing that. Where I will push back and try to build up a fort is that when he says some of these other Pantheon greats are 7s and 8s with the accomplishments that they posted, that's where I push back at.
So in the end, Shannon, Shaq's ego did shine through because when he was asked how many points Michael would average in today's NBA, he said, 45. And then he was asked, and how about you in today's NBA? And Shaq said 51. Okay? I don't have a problem with either one. I believe Jordan would average 50 today because you can't hand check. He was simply the greatest mid-range jump shooter this game has ever seen. And on top of that, he was an 84% free throw shooter. the combination of those two would make him a 50-a-game scorer today because he played every game relentlessly. And yet, Shaq, and we're about to talk about this in our next topic, there was a time for 3 years when Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominating offensive force I have ever witnessed. It was not pretty, but it was beautiful in the end because that guy today, with the rules that we have today, against a much softer NBA, I do believe he could have averaged 50 as well as Jordan. They might have been competing for scoring titles, and both have won scoring titles in their careers. So I get what he's saying, but in the end, he's just bowing down. He's kneeling in the presence of Michael Jordan, saying, oh, well, he's still way up there at 10. We're all down here at 8 and 7.
Skip, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. First of all, you and I both know Shaq is not averaging no 50 points because he's not going to shoot three, and he's not a good enough free throw percentage because all they're going to do is foul him. So what? Is he going to shoot 40 free throws a night? And you know he was about a 50%, so he's going to have to hit 20 of those. Shaq is not averaging 51 points a game. Let's put that out there. I don't believe Michael Jordan. Skip, when the pace of play was as high as it's ever been in the 80s, and you remember that the scores were routinely 140 was like a 120 game a night in today's NBA. There were 180 games, 170, 160s, something that we don't see now. That's what, look at those scoring averages. Go back and look at the scoring averages of the 80s and see. Michael had 37. His best year scoring was 37. And nobody has had a stretch like Wilt. Okay? Let's go ahead and put that out there. Wilt Chamberlain has 515 30-point games. 515. He had 68 in one year. He had 68 50 or more point games in one season. Really, Skip? Really? We're going to sit here and say somebody had a more dominant stretch than Wilt? Now, we might argue the fact that he's not the best player where he played with, there was only this many teams and he was the biggest guy and all that. But nobody dominated like Wilt. Nobody. Not even close. Because he has as many 60-point games as the rest of the NBA combined.
Obviously, the competition in Shaq's era was much greater, much bigger, much taller, much stronger than in Wilt's era. Well, I'm just telling you it was. That's even before my time, Wilt's time. And in the end, if you look back, look at the scores of the bad boy Pistons versus Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Look at the scores. We're talking about 90 to 80. We're talking about 85 to 75. Don't give me 160 points. Those games all the way up through 98 against Utah, all those scores are like 90 to 80 kind of scores.
No, Skip, I'm talking about in the 80s. I'm talking about Mike played from 84. He got 84, 85, 86, 87 to 89. You look at those scores. Detroit beat the Nuggets 183 to 181. There was a lot of 170, 160 ball games, Skip. So stop this notion. And you did cover Wilt's 100-point game. I saw you.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.